What is the worst thing your parents ever did to you? Story 1. My stepdad assaulted me as a minor. My mother was out of town, so I left and went to the police department, and then had another family member drive me to my mom. She manipulated me into retracting my statement from the police by telling me he would lose his job and we'd become homeless and that all of our family friends would hate us. So I did it because that was a terrifying thought, which was humiliating as I basically had to tell the police I imagined it, and it made me look super dramatic. I had to lie to CPS too. She did pretend to care and kicked him out for a bit, but then made me decide when he could come home, saying I couldn't just kick him out forever. So then he came back with the rule that we couldn't be alone in the home together, until that became inconvenient for her, and that rule just kinda got dropped silently. Then he did it again, and she made up an excuse that he was drunk and didn't realize what he was doing. The whole ordeal was so embarrassing. I got treated like the problem and was manipulated by the one person who was supposed to keep me safe. Oh well, we also got in a fight once when I had trouble finding a job after getting laid off because she was tired of helping me. I'd only been jobless for about 4 months and spent every waking hour trying to find a job. She texted me telling me I wasn't trying hard enough and that she was tired of helping me out and a bunch of other really mean stuff. I eventually asked her to please stop because I had been having a really hard time mentally, and she asked what I wanted from her. I said, I guess emotional support, and she said she couldn't do that and to find someone else to do it. She also told me she loved my son more than she loved me. Story 2. I was 21 in the Navy and my ship was out to sea on maneuvers. While out to sea, my girlfriend was killed in a traffic accident. My mom decided not to contact the Red Cross Navy affiliate to let me know because she believed I was doing important work and shouldn't be disturbed, which was bullshit because we were only gone for a month training reservists. So I missed her funeral and didn't even know that she was dead for 2 weeks after, since mom only told me when we pulled back into port. That was over 30 years ago. Both my parents have passed away, and I'm getting angry just by typing this. Story 3. Reading these comments, my parents were nowhere near as bad as these others. I don't mean to rub it in for anyone, but my parents were great. The worst thing I can remember is me telling my mom my secrets, and I told her to keep it to herself, but she would turn around and tell all of her friends and laughed with them about it. I would tell her many times to stop, but she wouldn't. It took about 6 years from when I first found out for her to stop telling the secrets. Story 4. My parents are addicts and they would always end up passed out somewhere and I would be left alone. I have autism and I am bad at telling if something is dangerous. I'd almost got hit by cars a lot. They also left me at their dealers until they got enough money. So glad I'm in a good foster home now. Story 5. Truth be told, my parents aren't terrible people, but they did a lot of damage to me when I was young. They would make fun of me and belittle me constantly to the point that I was afraid I would fail at just about everything, often telling me I didn't have the drive or skill to do the things I wanted to do. They also heavily favored my brother over me to the point where even my brother's best friends would ask me, "Why do your parents love your brother so much more than you?" One of my most painful memories as a kid was when our handyman, a Brazilian guy who would come over frequently to fix stuff that I always worked with, looked at me with pure pity on his face and told me, "I'm sorry that your parents can't see your value." It destroyed me, and 25 years later it still does. Friends, before we continue our video, I want to remind you of the importance of subscribing to our channel. We are also waiting for your comments and likes. Thank you. Let's move on to the video. Story 6. My mom drank heavily during the first 5 months of her pregnancy with me. I have fetal alcohol syndrome and I struggle every day of my life, and I always will because of my mom's choice not to believe she was pregnant when she was. I try hard to make it through my struggles and I will never give up on myself, but this never had to be this way in the first place. She also hid the fact that she drank during her pregnancy from me till other family members told me. She thought that if she never told me and just forgot about it, then everything would be fine and dandy. I was a special needs child on grade school, but I had an incorrect diagnosis because my mom hid everything from me. She also was against putting me in special needs classes because she couldn't handle the fact that her only child was a special needs child, so it took a lot of talking between my school staff and her to get me into these classes. In the end, she denied having me put in special needs classes, so I did not receive any help during school whatsoever. I had several strengths and took AP classes in this subjects and did well in them, so my mom, and dad too, thought that meant I should be in AP classes for every subject. So instead of being in special needs classes for part of the day and other classes for the subjects I excelled at, I was thrown into AP everything once I reached high school. I failed so many classes, and because I had no proper diagnosis, my high school teachers all thought I was lazy and unmotivated, and they heavily berated me for struggling. My mom stood on the sidelines pretending like everything was fine, when literally nothing was. I ended up graduating high school, and I got a bachelor's degree in music, which is what I excelled in. I wish I could say everything is going better now, but I can't. I have good days, but I also have bad days. I knew I'd struggle as an adult, but I didn't think I would struggle this much. She is a very ignorant woman, and I still hold so much anger towards her for doing this to me than trying to cover it up. There are so many more things I could list here, but this comment would be as long as a novel. I'll just say that she is someone who really should have never been a parent. I do love her, and we used to be extremely close when I was a child, but as an adult I realized that the way she raised me set me up for failure. There are so many things I'm trying to correct in myself as a 24-year-old, but unfortunately, the brain injury I sustained by being exposed to liquor in the womb will always be with me. I'm 24, but my level of functioning is that of about a 16 to 18-year-old. This is all due to my mom's choices 24 years ago. Story 7. Probably when my dad threw me against a wall and choked me on Mother's Day for going to see the Spider-Man movie with my sister. Or when my mom and her friend pinned my arms behind my back and talked about which one of them wanted to beat me more. Story 8. My mother was a heinous, cruel, bipolar woman who made my brother and I sick for attention. She was manipulative and all-around abusive. But here's the worst one. I was sexually abused by my stepdad for about 9 years, ending when I turned 12. When, at 12, I finally disclosed to my mom, the first thing she said was, "Well, at least now I know why he wasn't sleeping with me." Things did not improve from there. When she finally died a few years ago, I hadn't seen her in over 20 years. I have no regrets on that front. Story 9. My mom would hand me a trash bag and tell me to pack my shit so she could get rid of me. She would drop me off out front of an orphanage. She would drive around the block and come back and pick me up after what seemed like 30 minutes or so. This stopped when I was 5 and entered kindergarten and was old enough to tell an adult. Years later, I learned the orphanage was just an abandoned Catholic elementary school. Story 10. I'm playing a video game and I leave to go to the bathroom. I come back and the console was on, but the TV was switched to a soap opera. I then ask her why she changed the tab when I was using it. I pay the bills in this house, so I own everything here, which means I get to watch my show while I cook dinner. Mom, your bills can wait 40 seconds for me to save my game and turn it off before I switch it to your show. After that, she then proceeded to pin me to the couch with her full body weight and holds a large cooking knife to my throat, threatening to slit my throat if I so much as moved a muscle, verbally assaulting me and covering my mouth with her hands while her other had the knife pressed to my throat. Those 3 minutes before she got up and walked away are something I won't ever forget for the rest of my life. She's done a lot of bad things to me, but that one was one of the worst experiences I've ever had. The worst part of all that is I asked my dad what's wrong with my mom because she wasn't being supportive and her behavior was becoming narcissistic. That led to an investigation that revealed my mom was cheating on my dad with one of his close friends. She then blamed me for the adultery. 14 years later, and it's still fresh in my head on that happening. Story 11. My dad beat my mom, was generally just a horrible human being, racist, sexist, homophobic. You name something bad, he was it. Couldn't get out of that house faster. Story 12. My mother poisoned me and my wife. Story 13. They didn't believe me when I told them my school counselor raped me. Thankfully, the police did. Story 14. My father blew his brains out with a hollow point .357 Magnum a couple days ago after we got into yet another of one of our silly bickering arguments. Guess who saw his father's dead body propped up against the front door with a hole in his temple? This guy. Story 15. My dad spent my college money and called me a cunt when I confronted him about it. This is a good note to end on. Please rate your stories in the comments. I'll be happy to add them to future videos. Also, you can rate our other videos. We would be very grateful. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Most importantly, take care of yourself and your loved ones, and don't be afraid to seek help.